That's something that came out of the 60s, that people started actually talking about the history of genocide against Native Americans in this country, and now they're attacking one of the leading voices about that. And that's sending a message that you don't talk about genocide of Native American people in this country. And, you know, I think that there has been, and, you know, it's related to this Iran thing, is that regardless, I don't think we should look at it as what's World Can't Wait's position on Palestine or Israel. The point is, regarding this, is that they are out to silence, discredit, and drive out anyone who talks about the crimes of Israel and what they're committing against Palestine. You know, just very quick, big things. Desmond Tutu, disinvited from St. Thomas College in Minnesota, right? For his criticism of Israel. Tony Judd, professor at NYU, his speaking things were canceled because of his criticism of Israel's actions against Palestine. The list goes on several times. And me, myself, I was actually, you know, very kind of supportive of Israel at a certain point in time, and through various factors started learning more about what was going on. But part of the reason was because I could leave my dorm and go to the library and get a Noam Chomsky book. Now we're in a situation where Norman Finkelstein his books were banned from that university. That's what happened when he was denied tenure. They took the books from the shelves of that university of Norman Finkelstein. And if they can do that for Norman Finkelstein, then who can't they do it for? You know what I mean? And this is just straight up Nazi shit. And to quote Rage Against the Machine, you know the book, they don't have to burn the books, they'll just remove them. And that's what's going on right now. And I think that, look, there's a necessity to mobilize all political activists. Students are concerned about this as well. But there is, I think, a question of anyone who's concerned about the assault of critical thinking on these campuses, which is a tremendous amount of people. There's a huge pool of people that we can actually mobilize in this week to not just oppose this, but to deliver these people a political defeat this week, that week. And before I go into that, I just wanted to really emphasize that you cannot get the serious dangers and far-reaching implications of the attacks on critical thinking on campuses or Islamo-Fascism Awareness Week without grasping the overall fascistic transformation that is occurring in society today. Given what the Bush regime's goals are and the agenda that they are pursuing for society, there's a question: could you have campuses exist the way they currently are in society within the Bush regime and the kind of future that they're trying to bring about? No, you can't. And the point is that it's not like they're going to eradicate every progressive professor from the universities in the near future as pushing this forward. The point is that there's a serious emerging chill that is coming over college campuses that will silence the progressive, radical, and revolutionary voices on campus, and will be no longer a place of questioning and dissent. And this regime and its agenda cannot tolerate active and outspoken women's studies departments when they are moving to outlaw abortion, contraception, and the public's basic understanding about biology and women's health. This regime and its agenda cannot tolerate progressive law schools and law centers that are speaking out against Guantanamo Bay. This regime and its agenda cannot tolerate international studies departments that expose and criticize the U.S. imperialist interest in reshaping the Middle East. This regime and its agenda cannot tolerate black studies courses that teaches the real history of this country, the real history of slavery and Jim Crow. And they do not want people coming into the universities and discovering that their self-contained world that they come out of doesn't have anything to do with the real world. And they have already succeeded in squashing a lot of this. They've succeeded in squashing the MELAC department at Columbia, which is the Middle Eastern Studies Department. They're denying tenure to a law professor at UC Irvine. And what I talked about before as far as them firing Ward Churchill and Finkelstein, it's not like we're talking about this. It's actually happening. And they only need to make example of a few key people in order to exert that chill on society. And I really think, you know, Ward Churchill, Norm Finkelstein, are these the names of a beginning long list of blacklisted professors, or will these names go down as cases that inspired a whole generation to revolt and transform campuses and change the whole political question in society today? And that's the question that is really being posed in coming up to this Islamo-Fascism Awareness Week. And I think that a lot of people have said, you know, there's echoes of McCarthy in this, you know what I mean? Yeah, there's echoes of the McCarthy era. People know in the 1950s was a senator who lashed out and, you know, anti-communist hysteria within Hollywood, celebrities, people on campuses, and intellectuals and things of that nature. And I think that, you know, there is echoes of that, but I actually think it's more dangerous. And it's more dangerous because of the context in which this is happening in. We are in a situation of what we've been talking about at this conference today, where we're on the precipice of going to war with Iran, and there needs to be a major transformation in society's understanding and political will to stop that. They are moving to gut very basic norms in society. And so because it's happening in this context, what's going on these campuses, it takes a greater, higher stakes in what's going on right now. And I really feel like within all of this, within the opposing and delivering a defeat to the Islamo-Fascism Awareness, we actually can't forget what we've come to this conference for, which is to send a message to the planet that this regime is criminal, it does not represent us, and we're going to deliver that message through the concrete action of driving out the Bush regime and repudiating its agenda, so whoever replaces the Bush administration will step into a society of millions of conscience of people who are not willing to accept endless war and torture and have seen their own collective power through politically removing this regime. And we are not going to be able to do that without a radical student movement on campuses across the country, and we are not going to bring forward a radical student movement on campuses if the circumstances brought about by Horowitz and this intensifying repressive measures by campus administrators and police continue to increase. We talked about it yesterday with these students from UNC Greensboro who couldn't even show a film, Bush Crimes Commission, in their room. There was someone here yesterday from Pace who's been talking about how they basically won't allow his student group to be a regular student group. They can't pass out flyers. We saw this in the case against the Hampton students who were facing expulsion from class, from the university, for passing out flyers. So we can't really transform things on the commensurate level of what we need to unless we take this thing head on. And I really think that a key strategic factor that we have going into this, I'm going to say IFA, it's just, short, is that a key strategic factor is that Horowitz and these campus Republicans' their agenda and their methods cannot stand up to reality, and we will expose and confront them with the reality of what is going on and completely discredit their agenda as we send them packing.